Hello and welcome to Super OK, where we try to do a decent enough job to entertain people with our opinions on video games. My name is Zando, and I will be your host this afternoon, evening, or morning, depending on when you are listening. And joining me here, I have two wonderful, though mean-spirited humans. I'm reading the thing just change. All of a sudden it says, fuck Clay, he's never here anymore. The cursor went away. I don't know who said it.
Shots fired. That was me.
And that voice is of Mel. How are you doing today, Mel?
I'm doing well today. I'm so happy that you're hosting this episode. This is going to be fun.
I'm happy to be hosting because I'm with you two being Mel, and also Brody's with us. How you doing, Brody?
Hey, I'm doing good. I'm back from vacation. I'm alive. Thumbs up for everybody.
Hey, right.
And I'm hopefully not going to witness a murder here tonight, although you never know with Mel.
True.
Fair
That's
enough.
very true.
All right. Well, we start this episode the same way we start every single episode, where we talk about our highlight of the week. Something that just made our week a little bit better, a little bit brighter, made us smile. It's just exciting. So who wants to go first? Who wants to share their highlight of the week to start? Brody.
Ooh, I'd like to go first. So I had a pretty big week this past week. One thing was of something that was a little bit more hopeful for, and one was a very practical thing. So first of all, a really big victory. I got a promotion at work, which is something that I've been working toward for a very long time. The great news is I've kind of been doing the extra stuff for a while now, and so it doesn't mean any like extra responsibilities. It's just more or less being recognized for the additional work I'm doing, and so that's awesome news. I'm very, very excited about kind of the moving into this next stage, and that's a big victory for me. So this has been a while coming. I'm really happy about it.
Congrats.
And then smaller, well, thanks guys. And then a smaller thing is just that, and we were talking before the show started about like, oh, we really want to try and do stuff before the new season of Diablo starts. And my thing that I wanted to try and get through was playing Final Fantasy 16. And I've been playing that. I thought I'd played a lot of it. And then I looked at my playtime and it was like, you've been playing for 13 hours. I'm like, God damn, it feels like I've been playing for way more than that. But I'm like, still unlocking core stuff in the game. But I am pleased to report that based on 13 hours of play, the game is absolutely excellent. An RPG, not so much. That is very much an action game. But it is a very fun game. And I highly recommend folks checking it out. Its storytelling is great. Per usual, I think Yoshi P's done a really interesting job deviating this from a world building aspect and everything kind of from the previous entries. This one really feels different than the other ones. Like they do, even though they're kind of their own independent game worlds and stuff, feel kind of iterative. And this one is not the case for me, at least. It feels like its own totally new thing, and it's refreshing, and it's absolutely worth playing so far. And I guess based on what people are saying, I'm like, maybe if I was going to mainline it from here, like 10, 15 hours from finishing the game, like on a straight plot run. And then if people are saying completionist, it takes probably around 50 hours to get and do everything, side quests and stuff like that. So, which is short for a Final Fantasy
that's what
game.
I was going to say. When you're like, I'm 15
like,
hours away from the finish. Like, wait a second, didn't you say you're only 13 hours in? What the fuck?
Yeah, no, it's definitely short for that. And I'm guessing, but I don't know, that they have, every Final Fantasy has your legendary weapon quests and stuff like that. So we'll see whether it keeps kind of those going. But like everything's been excellent so far. So fingers crossed it ends excellent. But it's been a highlight for sure. It's been a lot of fun.
Have you been, pardon me for not knowing this, are you a longtime Final Fantasy fan? Does it bum you out that it's not an RPG style, or are you just enjoying the ride?
It does not. I played like a little bit of the older ones on NES and SNES back in the day, but like I didn't really start playing Final Fantasy kind of semi-religiously until 7. And so 7, 8, 9, 10 was huge for me. It didn't bother me. I'm kind of cool right now on JRPGs anyway. So for me, having the new system was great, especially since like some of their experiments like Final Fantasy 13 didn't really land for me. I thought the system was weird. And I think that this, like, I loved 15. I thought there was maybe a little bit too much of it. This is a really good job of kind of focusing that to some extent. So it does feel a little bit like they kept some of the stuff that they started establishing in 15, like the icons being these giant gods and existing in the world and not seeming just like, oh, magical beings. Like they actually feel like deities, which is awesome. But yeah, anyways, long story short, I'm cool with it. Cool with the new format.
Excellent.
I guess I will go next. This weekend has been a interesting weekend for me because I've been to some crazy concerts. On Friday evening, I went to go see Better Lovers, a band called God, what is it called? It was like some really, really heavy metal, like Russian band, Slaughter to Prevail or something like that.
Whoa.
We'll just assume that was it.
Like,
that sounds right.
I'm pretty sure it was. It was like a Russian death metal band, and they all came out wearing like these like metal kitsune like masks, and it was insanely wild. I think it was like one of the biggest mosh pits I've ever witnessed at a concert because it was also at the Majestic in Detroit. And it took up pretty much the whole entire floor. I have videos of it that I'm going to post in the Discord because it was wild. And then we also saw Under Oath on Friday, which was the whole entire lineup was just fantastic. I didn't think that I would really enjoy Slaughter to Prevail, but it was really good. It was really good metal on top of it being like an excellent performance by the artist. And then on Saturday, I went to go see Ed Sheeran, which he was performing with Khalid. So I got to see like Khalid's performance first and then Ed Sheeran. And at the Ed Sheeran concert, like he was going to do a cover of like Lose Yourself because he's in Detroit. So it like makes sense for him to like, you know, pay homage to some like Detroit legends. And so as he was saying Lose Yourself, like Eminem popped out and I like lost my shit. I was like, I cannot believe that Ed Sheeran, like Eminem's going to come out and play with Ed Sheeran. It just seems like an unlikely combination, but it worked out so well. And he got to perform Stan with Ed Sheeran, which is a song that I didn't think that he would have done with Ed Sheeran because he wrote a song. They both wrote a song together called River, and I was expecting that to be the song. But when he played Stan, I was like, man, this is such an old school song that like why? But I loved it. It was such a great time. Such a great time.
Apparently the two of them are like good friends. So
yeah, that's what I've heard too. And I didn't realize that until like my mom was like, we were in the car with my mom and I was like, Mom, like I am so like shocked that you got to see Eminem. And she was like looking on Wikipedia and be like, oh yeah, Ed Sheeran and Eminem are really good friends. Like they like talk a lot and like they came from like almost a similar background of like music. And I was like, that's weird, Mom.
It's so cool. And in fact, it went pretty viral online. Like I saw a bunch of Instagram reels of the concert. Mara said that she saw some TikTok clips of it. Like it definitely blew up online. And that's awesome. You know what? The first thought that went through my head, because you were talking about it in the Discord, was because I heard that Ed Sheeran was doing some very interesting thing where he's playing at the Royal Oak Music Theater beforehand, where he was doing like a really small set in a really small venue, which is shocking for somebody who's as popular as him. The Royal Oak Music Theater cannot hold that many people. And so I thought it was at that. And I was like, are you serious? He brought Eminem out at the Royal Oak Music Theater?
That would have been crazy.
Way. Well, no, there's no way. Where was the other one? Was it at LCA?
It was at Ford Field.
Oh, yeah. Okay, there you go.
So it was pretty much like a packed stadium where he got to play. So it was so cool. The whole entire stadium just like was an uproar. Like it was so loud that like my ears were ringing. I couldn't hear what Eminem was singing. Like I saw him on stage, but then I was like, I don't know what you're saying or singing, but like I know it's you.
That's awesome.
I had a friend that went to a concert at the Magic Stick on Friday, and it was like it was some weird like Russian folk band or something like that, but it was really weird because after every song you could just hear Under Oath blaring underneath us. So it was interesting to hear that, you know, knew two people basically in the same spot, but two completely different shows.
I didn't even know there was a show happening at the Magic Stick. I love that venue, by the way. It's wonderful.
Oh yeah, the Stick's great.
So my highlight of the week, I kind of split this in two because there's been two really good things. The first has been my wife and I we just got together and talked about like our household duty. This is going to sound so lame to everybody else about household duties and like stress that my wife's been going through about a lot of stuff, like feeling like she's overwhelmed. And so we kind of like just wrote a whole bunch of stuff down and divvied it up, and then like our days have gone
Mhm.
so much smoother, and just the house has been
Nice.
happier, and so that's great. So good
I
job for like
love that.
mental and relationship health. That's good.
Hell yeah.
Yes.
Communication.
Yeah,
That's
it's
great.
shocking how effective that
Yeah.
stuff is. We've done
Yeah.
stuff like that in the past too.
Yeah, so
nice.
just like her mood has completely lifted from how she's been for a while, which means my mood has also lifted. The whole happy wife, happy life thing is very true. Especially, I don't know if you guys are like Enneagram people. She's a 1, aka perfectionist, and I'm a 9, the peacekeeper, aka I'm going to apologize for everything and assume everything's my fault. So everything's been real good lately. On top of that, there's a new game that came out. I don't remember where I first saw this. It was probably some random advertisement, but it looked interesting. It's called Gravity Circuit, and it's a homage to Mega Man. Just that style of like here's 8 bosses to fight. It's a fast-paced side-scrolling platformer with also your character has a grappling hook, so it's like Mega Man and
Ooh.
Bionic Commando combined.
Ooh,
And I fucking love this game so far.
sounds
Yeah,
awesome.
I was done with putting my kids to bed a little bit early tonight, so I had time before we started recording. It's like I'm gonna play a level of Gravity Circuit, and it's so rewarding. Like there's a dash button that like increases your speed like crazy, so you're running and swinging off walls at insane speeds, and it's just so gratifying to play, especially as a longtime Mega Man fan. I'm really loving Gravity Circuit, and I'm only about maybe halfway through it. I'm not expecting it to be a long game because it is, like I said, a Mega Man style game, but it is pretty great so far. Um,
Nice.
Yeah, it looks awesome. Like I'm looking at some of the gameplay on Steam right
Mhm.
now, and I didn't realize it just came out this
Yeah.
week, like 4 days
yeah,
ago.
literally like
This is,
3-4
new.
days ago. I got an email from Steam like, hey, this thing's finally. I was like, oh shit, I completely forgot about this. Yeah, I'll buy it. Why not? And then I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. Like I said, as
So
a
this-
longtime Mega Man fan, this feels pretty great in a world where we're not getting anything Mega Man except for teases about maybe something will happen. It feels pretty great
Mhm.
to have
Or like
something in
weird
that
mobile
style.
apps.
Yeah.
Yeah. This totally seems like something that Clay would go crazy for too. So I'm curious whether he's heard of it or anything
Yeah,
like
I
that.
post
Clay, if you haven't heard of it, play it.
Clay who? I don't.
fuck that guy, right?
I don't know who that guy
Such
is.
shade, man.
I actually posted in the Discord earlier today. I was like, I don't know if there's any Mega Man or Bionic Commando fans, if it's just me, but if you're sleeping on Gravity Circuit, you got to wake up. And then like he tagged, he was like, I'm sorry, did you call? My soul ripped from my body and brought me to this message.
Oh, yep.
So-
there we
Oh,
go.
so
Okay.
he's alive now.
Hopefully
All
if he's,
right, good
nice.
to know.
Hopefully, if he's in the Discord tonight, I'll stream it for him. I was trying to play it last night
Oh, yeah.
while he and I were both in the stream, and I was way too tired and just groggy, and so I wasn't talking for like a full 40 minutes. I was like, hey guys, I'm way too tired to be here. I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
So I'll be in the
That's
Discord
funny.
playing Gravity Circuit for a while. So if you want to check it out, I'm more than happy to share. And
right
until
on.
we just wait for Capcom to finally give us more Mega Man, this is what I'm going to have to live with. Oh, hey, speaking of Capcom, did you know that in the history of home console gaming that few companies have withstood the test of time? Well, since their first official gaming release in 1983, Capcom has stuck around and been a name in the gaming household that has stood for many things: greatness, consistency, greed, poor DLC practices, absolute banger franchises. And from being a public defender to fighting in the streets, destroying rogue robots, and trying to contain a zombie outbreak, chances are there's a Capcom series out there that you know and love, and we're going to talk about them. It's always great when highlights go right into the subject of the episode. So let's
Yeah.
just
Oh,
talk
yeah.
about Capcom this week. The company's been around, like I said, since '83. Actually, I think they started in '79, but they started focusing on gaming in '83. And they have like just a ton of multi-million copy selling games. Different series like Resident Evil, Devil May Cry, Mega Man, Street Fighter, Monster Hunter. Literally, you name a game, Capcom probably made it. Okay, that's not true. But what is your favorite Capcom series, and what is your favorite title within that series?
So this is a really tough one for me because I'm pretty well divided here based on my love for either Resident Evil or Monster Hunter. I mean, I think it's interesting to kind of look at those in comparison too, because one has really evolved over time, with Resident Evil trying all kinds of stuff from like the fixed camera games at first to Resident Evil 4 moving into the kind of like over the shoulder third person stuff, then the first person stuff. And then, Monster Hunter has just been Monster Hunter, right?
Mhm.
So I think I don't know if I could take one. I think, to be honest with you, I'd have to take Resident Evil just based on the amount of games that I've completed in the series. I don't think I've actually soup to nuts finished a Monster Hunter game because I just play it as much as I want to play it and then stop playing it. I don't think I ever like full complete the game, which now kind of that makes me feel really bad because I absolutely love like Monster Hunter World and Monster Hunter Rise were just so fucking good. The earlier ones were good too, but like the camera situation, the control situation on some of those old games was fucking terrible. It was so bad. But yeah, anyways, I think I'm going to have to give it to Resident Evil. If I'm going to take one game, I know this is going to be a hot take, but I might take Resident Evil 7 as my personal favorite.
Really?
The reason why I'm taking 7 is because the situation under which I played it was really a lot of fun. And I played it up north with like a bunch of my family that wanted to watch for some reason. I was very surprised that they wanted to like sit there and watch me play Resident Evil 7, but like they were so invested with like the weird family thing going on and stuff. And like that game had its flaws. I think objectively Resident Evil 8 was a better game, but it just was it was such a fun playthrough. And part of it too is that I broke out the PlayStation VR and played like I noped the shit out of it, where I played it for like 7 minutes. And the initial scene where you're like walking into the house and like they're trying to set up the haunted house, and like I no way. I shut it down. I was like, I can't do this. My dad was losing his shit. But anyways, long story short, I think I'm gonna have to go Resident Evil. I'm gonna do an honorable mention for a series that I really, really wanted to play and just never have for no reason, and that's Devil May Cry. Like I love the idea of a Devil May Cry game, and I watch people play like the DMC remake and stuff, and just it always looks so much fun, and I just never sit down to play them, and it breaks my heart. So that's my honorable mention of a game that I'd love to sit down and play through a couple of because they look so much fun.
Yeah, I'm there with you. Like every single time I watch somebody play Devil May Cry, I'm like, man, that looks like a freaking fun game where you're just bashing on people like constantly.
Yeah.
And it looks just amazing.
I've tried getting into it and I can't. I don't know what it is about it. Like I've tried a couple different times. Everybody keeps saying like, "Oh, Devil May Cry is great. You would really like it. It's got like a rhythm to it, and then you score on each thing." And every time I play it, I'm like, "Why am I not getting the highest score? This is dumb. I hate it." Like it doesn't make sense to me how I'm not like I feel like I'm doing really well. I was like, "You got a C." I'm like, "Fuck you. I got an A at least." Like what? And so that makes me mad, and I don't understand what I'm not doing right, and I don't have the time to invest in finding out what I'm doing wrong. And so I'm just going to respect it from afar.
I totally had that experience recently with Final Fantasy 16. They have like an arcade mode that does that, where you can replay levels like in a more like combat graded style. And the exact same thing happened to me, where it was like S tier, S tier, S tier, like C tier. And I was like, why? I did nothing different. What the fuck? Why did I get a C tier on this level? Do I really have to play this whole thing again? Why? So I feel you on that.
Crazy. Well, my favorite series from Capcom is Monster Hunter. I really haven't played a lot of Capcom games in general, but like when I played Monster Hunter World for the first time, I fell in love. I love the ability to like just co-op with your friends to just take down monsters, and hearing my friends scream from like the next room saying there's like an Ageneth chasing me. I thought was just like so much fun. But like it's crazy that they just kind of like throw you into this game without like really telling you like what to do. Like World kind of gives you like different objectives that you have to do that kind of, I'm going to put in quotes, teaches you to play the game, but it kind of really doesn't. You just get thrown in there and they go, good luck, try to take out this monster.
Yeah. No, that is definitely something I think the series would, if they really wanted to, could be a little bit more approachable for, because the game really does play like a fighting game where you like have to know the moves, you have to know the stances.
Right.
The one thing that I think is really underrated is knowing animation cancels and stuff, like depending on what weapon you're playing. And like when Meredith was playing it with me, and I was like, when she started playing, I was like, look, you can play this game however you want. My best advice though is to like, first thing you do after you do all the initial shit is to go into the training room with the training dummy and just like figure it out. Like spend some time in there, hit the big frog thing, and like, yeah. But aside from that, I agree with you. The games have always had a bit of an approachability problem.
But still great. Like looking at all the different monsters and like collecting the monster parts by like destroying like very particular parts of the monster's body was just so interesting for me because I would be like, oh, I'm gonna attack the tail this time. What? I got to collect the tail? That's great. But there is one game series where I feel like I probably should play it because I would love the crap out of it. It's not Devil May Cry, but it's Dead Rising. Like you get to just murder a bunch of zombies with just random objects.
It's fun.
And just like mow them down. And I feel like that's very much up my alley.
Yeah.
It is a very fun game that every once in a while did something extremely frustrating where it would give you timed quests, which were super annoying.
I hate those.
For the most part, 1 and 3 were pretty decent about that. 2 was like, from what I remember, leaned into that pretty heavily. But like, I highly recommend like going back and playing one of them for at least a little while, especially like the first one. It was very fun. It was a lot of fun for that exact reason. You could do all kinds of funny shit with the stuff you build, and it was great.
Yeah, I remember Josh like had his roommate's girlfriend's kid. He was like really young at the time, maybe like 5 or like 6 or 7 playing Dead Rising. And I walked into the room while he was playing and he literally was just like naked with underwear on, like with a golf club, just hitting zombies like crazy. And I'm like,
Dead Rising.
This is crazy.
Yep. Had the Lego head on.
Yeah, the surf bot.
Yeah.
Oh
if you do go back and play them, I personally think 2 was the best. I didn't really play a whole lot of 3, and I only started a little bit of 4. I think 2 had the most to offer. Yes, it did have the timed thing. Like your daughter is infected, like she's going to turn into a zombie. But there's like a medicine that like staves it off, and you have to like not only find the medicine but get it back to her in a certain amount of time. And if you don't, you fail, and then the game. So, but the neat thing about Dead Rising, and even in the first one, those timed missions, if you don't do them, it's not game over. You just don't get to finish the story that time. You can keep playing the game however the hell you want to. You just have to keep an eye on those timed missions if you want to finish the story. But if you're like, oh, I've got to make it all the way across the map before this mission goes, but I also I'm having fun killing these zombies right now. That's cool. Just go back and keep killing those zombies. And then you like, it's not like the game is long. The storyline really doesn't take you a very long time to get through. So it's starting over is not really that big of a deal. And you get to learn as you go. And I believe your level carries over. So eventually you're just like going through at a higher level and
nice.
And, just cleaning up really. But if you do go back and start them, if you start with 2, don't go back to 1 because there's so much that you can do in 2 that you can't do in 1 that you're going to feel like you're just like being constrained and you're not going to have as much fun. So I would probably say start with 1 if you can, kind of get used to it and see all the cool stuff you can do, and then see how 2 improved on it. 3 tried to go a weird thing where it seemed like it was taking it more seriously than the first 2, and I think that's why 3 didn't do as well. And then when 4 came out, they said, "Fuck this, we're going to make this bonkers again." And so 4,
I want the bonkers gameplay. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it was just some of the stuff that you can do, like you said, putting the from Mega Man Legends, the little Servbot, they look like little Lego characters, putting their Servbot mask on and running around. I used to do a thing through the first and second game called Gentleman Blanca, where I would go and find the nicest tuxedo I could get and then find a Blanca mask, which was called a Goblin mask, and just run around the story, like talking to people and like having these really heartfelt, like, I'm going to save you. You're not going to die. I'm not going to let it happen. But it's like Blanca in a tuxedo talking to him. It's so dumb. But for me, like Capcom is like, I may as well just get a Capcom tattoo because I love everything that they do, with the exception of Devil May Cry. And I've honestly never played a Monster Hunter game, but I'm not going to lie, you're selling me on it, the whole making it like a fighting game. So to kind of pick between my babies, like, is it Street Fighter? Is it Resident Evil? Is it Mega Man? It's tough, but sorry, Street Fighter. Sorry, Resident Evil. We're going with Mega Man. This was probably my first Capcom series I started playing. And it's a series that I go back and revisit annually. Like I always find a time like I'm going to play through Mega Man again. And then I end up playing through the entire original series and then go through the X series. I just love the games to death. As far as my favorite, I know it's not objectively the best one, but Mega Man 3 always holds a special place in my heart. It's the first one I ever got to play. It's the introduction of one of my favorite video game characters of all time in Proto Man. And so that's the one I got to go with. I will agree with you that Resident Evil 7 is really good. But that's again just because I grew up with Resident Evil and I loved the survival horror aspect of it. And as much as I love 4, I kind of hated it for turning it into an action game. So when they brought it back to the scary roots of 7, I loved it. It was great. And 8 is probably objectively a better game, but they did the same thing. Like, we're going to take 7 and then we're going to make it Resident Evil 4. And that's how we got Resident Evil 8. So if you look at, there's a lot of kind of parallels you can draw between those two. But from just a pure survival horror, 7 is so good. And I'm disappointed in myself for sleeping on it for as long as I did. Because like, there's no way it's going to be any good. The last ones haven't been great. And then I was obsessed with it.
Well, in fairness, it did follow some like the Revelations games, which were like not spectacular, and Resident Evil like 5 and 6 were not good at all. Well, I'm sorry, they weren't. They tried to be Resident Evil 4 over and over again with new gimmicks, right? So
5 isn't terrible. 6 actually was.
yeah, but 7 made up for it.
Yeah, out of all the Resident Evils that I've played, I've only played 7, and I didn't even get through most of it because I was like too scared to play that game. Because like going through the woods to find the house, I was already noping. And that's like literally like the first like 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah, try doing that in VR and see how you like it. It's just terrifying. But what I actually, since we have a second, what I wanted to talk about too is that, you know, the Resident Evil series started out as being the like fixed camera, and they had that for the first 3 games, right?
4, because if you count Code Veronica.
Oh yeah, I always forget about
Everybody
Code Veronica.
does.
Now Capcom had that era though where they went through and they just loved this like fixed camera stuff. They did it with like Onimusha as well. How did you guys feel about that? Because I will say that I loved Resident Evil 1. It's a game I cannot go back and play now for just it's impossible to navigate with the controls. But like at the time, I absolutely fucking adored it. It was one of my favorite games of all times. Onimusha I played kind of recently, and it's the same deal where it was heartbreaking, but like still a pretty bones of a pretty good game. Do you guys have experience with that as well, and like opinions about whether it's even playable now?
I think it is. It takes a minute to get used to, like kind of getting yourself back in that tank control kind of position. And I believe the Steam version of the remake does have more modern controls. I've not gone back and played. I own everything on Steam because I was like, there was one. When I first started streaming, I started with Resident Evil 7. You can go back and watch clips and be getting the shit scared out of me with certain pop jump scares and stuff like that. And now anytime a new Resident Evil game is, I stream the hell out of it. I'm just going through getting all the achievements. I had the goal of starting with 0 and going all the way through again. And man, 0 is a rough one. It's not like impossible, but man, it just there's always that learning curve of new Resident Evils where you're like, I need to figure out how to play this game, and then once it clicks, I'm unstoppable. And that's kind of what I love about those games. But as far as the tank controls go, it takes you a little bit to kind of go back into it. If you are just staunchly against tank controls, you're not going to be able to go back and play it. But if you can actually take the time to learn and adapt, it's really not awful, and it starts to make more sense as you go.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah, I don't really know how I feel about it. Maybe like I would think of it like if I were to play one of those games, because I really haven't played any ones that has like more of a fixed camera. That it would be like, oh, I'm like watching a movie, right? Like I feel like what they want you to look at is placed in front of you, right? Like and that's why it's fixed for a reason, rather than you kind of being ADHD and looking at like all the different corners or like weird stuff in the room.
Yeah, it's kind of neat, the suspense that it builds. Like, you know, there's an enemy there, but you can't see it, so you have to like back into a corner until you can see it and know where to aim. That's kind of a cool like a horror style thing to do. And I think it's done pretty well. But yeah, you're right. They did have Onimusha. They had Dino Crisis. They were like trying to follow that like still shot, like pre-rendered graphic background, so they could, you know, have decent looking graphics for these little polygon tanks that are running around.
It's true.
Well, besides the home console titles, Capcom also has an impressive list of arcade games. Are there any that are staples for you that you must play every time you see it? Conversely, are there any that you actively avoid, or any that you've never played but would love to? For me, I can't see a Street Fighter machine and not put at least one quarter into it. I'm not allowed to do it. It's code, man. And then as far as something that I avoid, I went to an arcade just outside of Chicago called Galloping Ghost. If you ever get the chance to go there. It's gigantic. You pay like $10, everything's set to free play, and you'll be surprised at all the stuff that's there, and it's a great working condition. But they had a Bionic Commando arcade cabinet, and I fucking love Bionic Commando. And I didn't know there was an arcade version, and it was bad. It made me real sad, and I never want to play it again.
Oh no, that's
Yeah,
heartbreaking.
but I always do love going trying to find all the random fighting games that they have. But man, Street Fighter's it's a staple. It's got to be there.
God, they do have so many, don't they? But no, that place sounds amazing. I'll definitely. I'm rarely out that way, but if I ever am, I'll have to check it out. For me, I'm probably like the least arcade oriented person I think on the Super OK crew. I just am like rarely ever at arcades for any reason and haven't been a lot. But like I've talked previously about Marvel vs. Capcom 2 being a huge staple of my gaming years, especially in high school. Spent a lot of time playing Marvel vs. Capcom 2 a lot. And so that was a big one. I wanted to buy actually the arcade one up home cabinet of it, but like it was selling out something like 20 seconds or something.
Oh.
And so I couldn't get one, and I gave up after some point because I was like, okay, let's be honest, this is like $600 and I don't need it. So maybe I just save that money. Yeah, I think otherwise I did play games that were like the 1942, 1943 kind of the top down shooters games, and Knights of the Round. I know that Dale in a previous episode has called out the Dungeons and Dragons Chronicles of Mystara, I think it is. It's something like that, if it's not that exactly. But the kind of licensed beat 'em ups and stuff that they had that were a lot of fun. And since then, actually, they've released a lot of those back on the Capcom arcade collections on like the Switch and on Steam and stuff, where you can buy those. So anyways, those are out there if anybody wants to play them. The one game I actively avoid, I've always fucking hated the Ghosts and Goblins / Ghouls and Ghosts, like that franchise.
The original Dark Souls.
Absolutely fucking hate it. It's so hard. It was never any fun. It was like I'd rather play Altered Beast any day of the week than play that game. It's so fucking
that music
hard.
slaps.
Is
though.
it just
That's my skip. I haven't even paid attention because I'm usually just so mad. I'm always like, this will be the time that no, fuck this game. So I'm not paying attention about the game at all, or the music at all, unfortunately.
So is that game mostly because you guys said it was like Dark Souls, so is it just bosses that you just fight?
No, it's just like incredibly difficult, and your character has literally two hits of armor. Like he starts as this little armored knight, and he gets hit, and he's down to his underwear, and you keep going, and there's just enemies everywhere. They're hard to hit. Like it's just an extremely difficult game. And so when I think of extremely difficult, I'm like, oh, nowadays that's Dark Souls. So I just throw it out arbitrarily. Yeah, it's not really a Souls-like game. But
it is probably a core memory though for me, the like running around as Arthur in your underwear, like just because I would get hit so often. Because like I spent the vast majority of my games in that playing in my underwear. Not my personal underwear, in Arthur's underwear.
I was going to say,
that sounds even worse. Anyways, let's move on.
Why are you going to arcades with just your underwear?
I'm going to arcades in Arthur's underwear, guys.
You can unlock Arthur's underwear in Dead Rising, by the way, and just run around in those little heart boxers.
Yeah, let's do it.
All the fan service of Dead Rising is perfect.
Absolutely.
It's so good.
I love playing Street Fighter 2 at arcades just because it's a classic game and you just literally just button mash, because I'm not really good at combos, so I'm just sitting there with the joystick and just pounding away on the keys hoping that I land a hit.
I'm not good at combos either, that's why I play Zangief. Just hit them hard and they're done. That's all I got to worry about. Well, Capcom certainly isn't shy about making remakes of some of their popular titles. We kind of touched on this, even some of their less popular titles. Which remakes stand out for you? And is there a game that you would love to see be remade or rebooted by Capcom?
So I really struggle with this one because I don't think I've actually played any of the remakes. The one that I was going to play, if I was going to play one, is going to be the Resident Evil 4 remake. I will say that I think I played like one of the remasters of the original Resident Evil, but it was just a graphic overhaul, if I recall correctly. It was not like a fundamental change to the gameplay, so I don't necessarily count that. At some point, I might go through the RE4 remake just to do it. Although I can't say I'm super motivated. Aside from that, like I brought up Onimusha earlier, and I think that they could probably revive that series. Especially if they take an approach that's maybe a little bit closer to some of the combat beats from like a Devil May Cry, which may have had some of their inspiration from that like earlier anyways. They were always really good at kind of the like adventure-y stuff that they would incorporate into those games, and the like environmentally puzzle solving, like find the red eye for the tiger statue,
Right.
and then go put it back in the statue, and like that stuff was always a lot of fun. And I think that they could find a way to kind of breathe new life into that franchise if they want to. And the only other one, which is not one that I played, but I heard like there was so much critical acclaim for this series out there, and I just don't. Maybe I haven't put the feelers out there. I don't remember anybody I know talking about it, which is the Lost Planet series. It seems like some people are just Lost Planet, especially Lost Planet 2 fanatics. In fact, you can still go on and play online Lost Planet 2. People are still playing it to this day. It's like an online only game. So I don't know. Maybe there's enough. Like if you're out there and you're a Lost Planet hack, let us know in the Discord. Like I'm genuinely curious what you love about the series. It's one of those that's lesser known for Capcom, but has a very cult following. So if you're one of those Lost Planet folks, let us know.
Yeah, I bought the first Lost Planet when I got my 360. Again, because someone's like, you get a grappling hook like Bionic Command. I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm there. Like anytime there's a grappling hook mechanic, man, I'm in. And it was interesting enough. I didn't put enough time into it because at the same time I also got Dead Rising, so I played a lot of Dead Rising instead. But yeah, I've heard they're really good. The people who love it absolutely love it. It's one of those that I would love to go back and try, but I don't know that I will unless they actually do a remake or remaster of that.
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, like I really haven't played a lot of games, but I remember like watching my husband like play Resident Evil 2. Is that the one with Mr. X in it? Right? Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, Resident Evil 2. And I don't remember like ever watching like old. Oh, no, I lied. I remember watching like an old speedrun of Resident Evil 2, and I'm like, oh, this isn't like that scary. So when I was watching my husband play this game, I was like, why is this like way more intense than it needs to be? and like I remember like him going through like there's a big open library, I think, that's kind of like a labyrinth or something like that, where he like can chase you like through these labyrinths. And I remember him screaming so loud because he like turned a corner and Mr. X was like right there in front of him, and like he just lost it. He's like, nope, I'm done with this game right after. Nice. But I love watching people play the Resident Evil remakes because I feel like it's such a good introduction to like the Resident Evil series. Like I've never really played one of those, but like I love watching people stream it because it just looks so cool and interesting as like they're trying to solve puzzles and things like that. And if there was if they could potentially remake some of like their Disney games, I feel like I would play that, like some of the DuckTales or some of like the Chip and Dale like rescue games. I think I'd be all about that.
So they do have a Saturday morning cartoon collection where it is Chip and Dale 1 and 2 and DuckTales and Tailspin, and they did a straight up HD remaster of DuckTales.
What?
Yeah, the DuckTales came out like in 2009, I think. It's just like graphical overhaul. It's like just hand-drawn graphics, and they had Jake Kaufman, who did the soundtrack for Shovel Knight, come in and like remix all of those classic themes. So your wish is my command, I guess. Like there you go.
What? I didn't realize that was a thing. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now in 2013. Of course I didn't hear about this, but it looks so cute. I think I'm going to add this to my cart.
There you go.
Boom.
I'm going to keep going with the Resident Evil remake hype. Resident Evil 2, I didn't want to like it because like Resident Evil 2, everybody like acclaims like, oh, this is one of the best ones. Like, man, I really like 3, and I really like the weird stuff because that's just my character. I'm never allowed to like something that everybody does. I always have to like the weird shit that no one likes. But I'll be damned if that's not a phenomenal remake, and it really should set the bar for remakes going forward. I think all of the remakes that Resident Evil have done have been incredible. From the very first, like the first Resident Evil game, that they had like the director's cut, which was basically the same thing with a few tweaks here and there. But when they remade that for the GameCube, I was blown away. And there's so dumb. There's a random puddle that's in that game that is just rendered so well, and I'm like, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. And I hold all my other graphical standards to that one puddle. And they did like with the remake of Resident Evil 1, they added a whole bunch of stuff. They added a whole new section of the map. Like if you like the original Resident Evil, search out that Resident Evil remake. I think it's kind of the general one that's available now. It was really well done, especially if you love the original PlayStation one with that horrible live action opening and the god awful but
Oh yeah.
lovable voice acting. But Resident Evil
Had a
2,
live
that
action.
remake is phenomenal. Mr. X chases you around like there's no way to kill him. You can knock him down to where he's like, all right, I gotta take a knee. You did beat my ass here, but I'm gonna get back up in like 2 minutes. So motherfucker, you better run. But Resident Evil 2 was done very well. Resident Evil 3 was done very well. Resident Evil 4 was all like I'm so excited for them to keep remaking Resident Evil games because they've done such a good job with them. I would
Yeah.
love for them to see or to redo Resident Evil Outbreak, which was a series that came out like 2005. They did 2 games, and it was basically like self-contained stories. You had 7, I believe, characters that you could play as, and it was online. That was really the only way you could play it. But you could play single player, and it
Oh
was like really
yeah.
tough. But like the very first map, for example, you're in a bar and then the outbreak happens and you are the security guard who just came in to get a drink, or you're this guy who works in the subway, or you're a plumber, or you're a cop, or a waitress, and you're like, fuck, everybody's got a special skill, but we need to get the fuck out of here. And so you're thrown into a Resident Evil game as these like random characters, and you have to get through these like short missions. And it was such a cool experience. There was no voice communication because it was very early in like the PlayStation 2 online era, and that's what got a lot of people kind of miffed about it. Like, oh, I can't communicate with my partners or whatever.
Sure.
But there were like you could hit the right stick and communicate like I need help or come over here or watch out, stuff like
Mm.
that. But if you weren't in the same room with them, you couldn't hear that, which I thought made sense because if you're in a zombie, outbreak and I'm in a bar and you guys are in the next room, like you're probably not going to hear me. But you had these these text chat rooms that you could talk about or talking before you started the game and lay out like, okay, I'm going to go for this. You're playing the plumber, which means you're really good with knives. You got to be over here. And the difficulty was nuts. Like the harder you made it, it actually was like if you weren't communicating with your teammate beforehand, you were fucked. And I just absolutely loved these games. And they've tried to do the online Resident Evil since then, and they've never quite captured how good that first like Outbreak and File 2 were. So I would love to see them maybe just bring those games back. I don't care if they still look at PlayStation 2 game. I'll play the shit out of those right now.
God, such a good call. I forgot about that. And I forgot also about how derpy some of the PlayStation 2 online stuff could be. I think at the time I was playing like one of the Tribes online multiplayer
Mhm.
games on it. And it was like, it was a little
Yeah, it was pretty
rough,
much if it
but,
wasn't
man, I
SOCOM, it
totally
wasn't
forgot about
worth
that.
trying to play online on PlayStation. But
Fair.
I went
That's
out
fair.
and bought a keyboard for my PlayStation so I could like be in these chat rooms. My friend and I got really good at the game, and so we would start to like mess with the other players because you could eventually like hurt your other teammates or whatever. Or like if you got
No.
taken enough damage, instead of dying, you would like fall on the ground and like you had to be helped back up. And if you didn't, you died, but then you turned into a zombie and you could chase down your teammates.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, you can
Yeah,
totally
so it was
fuck
like
with
if
them.
you died, like okay, well I guess I'm going to try to kill my teammates now because why not? But it was there was one map where you're in the hospital and my friend and I found out that you can hide in the elevator like when you're selecting the floor, and time continues to pass in the game. So you like let your other teammates do everything while you're sitting there full health. And so we just sat in the elevator and
Love
we were
it.
like on the phone talking to one another. And then we see the cutscenes as they're completing things. Like, okay, cool. They did this. Oh, they beat the boss. That's great. And then we were such assholes. Like we
Fucking
went in
trolls.
and like the boss is dead and they're both like crawling on the ground trying to survive. And we just like watched them die.
Full
and then we
health.
ran and got credit for
Oh
completing
my
the level.
gosh.
We
So
were the
bad.
worst, but we played that game so much we had to find new ways to keep ourselves entertained. Man, I love those
Oh, man.
games.
Did you get to play with all 8 with all 8 people in the lobby, or was it just like limited to maybe like 4
I believe
people
it was limited
or
to
something
4.
like that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think the lobbies were size 4, which is why you had to communicate beforehand. Like, hey, we need somebody to do that. Like the security guard, he was like this old black dude, and so he was like slow, but he had just a ton of health and could block. Like his special ability is he could block, so you could stand in front of or stand behind him, and he would take a beating for you while you like. We would do it. In one of the things, it was just like instead of a final boss, it was just like a horde mode where the zombies kept coming. And so there was this guy, we don't know who he is, we don't know where he's from, but his name was Kilimanjaro, and we're like, what a cool name! Like you're like Kilimanjaro. Like well, anyway, And we started calling him Knife Manjaro because he would play David, who was the plumber, and the plumber just had this like crazy knife combo, and he started with a knife that couldn't break. And so we just had this one strategy where we hid in a corner, and we had one dude play Mark, who was the bodyguard, and he just took the brunt of all the damage while David was like just knifing from behind. And we're like, we need to survive. It was like hardest difficult. It took like half an hour, but we got through it, and it was like the most I can't even think of the word I want to use. It felt so good to get through that. It was so good. I love those games so much.
That's awesome.
Man, I got to take a breath. So Capcom likes to play nice by beating the snot out of their rival gaming companies in versus games like Marvel vs. Capcom, as we mentioned, Capcom vs. SNK, and Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, and of course Street Fighter Cross Tekken. With rosters as high as 56 characters, there's bound to be a few favorites. So which characters have you been the most excited about in these kind of crossover fighting games? And what characters would you like to see in future installments?
Wait. Time out. Like, there's 56 characters that you can choose from?
In Marvel vs. Capcom
like Marvel
2
vs.
alone,
Capcom.
there are 56 characters.
Yes.
How do you...
It's a three.
I mean, just think about it. It's like the entire Marvel universe. Well, not the entire, but
pretty
like
healthy sampling of the Marvel universe.
A shit ton of Marvel heroes. Yeah.
Yeah. So it pulls in characters from Street Fighter. So like the entire base Street Fighter roster is there. All their other weird, like their horror game, Darkstalkers fighting game, where you get the vampire lady, you got Felicia, like all these other characters. And then like some of the more random things like Sun or Amingo from Samba de Amigo, like just some weird characters that you would never expect to show up.
Like Tron Bond from the extended Mega Man universe. Like, yeah, they have all kinds of characters in that. And so of course that's going to be my call out. So the ones that I always gravitated towards, I think we're more on the Marvel side, weirdly enough. And at that point I wasn't like a huge comic book or like Marvel person. So I didn't know, I just played them. So Shuma Gorath was always my go-to, which was a really weird character. Not a lot of people played him, but like, he was my jam. He had this ultimate thing that took 3 bars that could do a ton of damage. I think it was called Chaos Dimension. You grab the person and it's like a near kill every time. I love playing as him. I would play as Venom because he had a lot of mobility for a big guy, can do a lot of damage really quickly. They had Hayato, and I don't remember what game he was from, but Hayato was like a really hard-hitting swordsman with some some counter abilities. It had some like extra defense options, but was like had a really good core combo that he used, and I used to have him in the rotation. And then like I would keep Guile from the Street Fighter universe. Guile had a really good moveset in MVC2, and he had some really awesome air counters, and his like flash kicks and stuff were super good. His assists were outstanding. So those were the ones that I stuck to. I will say that Shuma Gorath finally got an MCU debut in the second Doctor Strange movie, Multiverse of Madness. Like right at the beginning, he attacks
the giant eyeball tentacle monster.
Yep, absolutely. I was like, oh, it's my boy. Like I never thought I'd see him in a movie.
Hayato was from a 3D fighting game series called Star Gladiator. Just another random. Capcom has made a ton of just random ass fighting games, and that was one of them.
Yes, they have.
And Marvel vs.
Mel, what about you?
Mel, go by all means. Tell us about your fighting game characters. We got to.
Yeah, like I have one.
You were like, why? Why are
the
they
deer
going
in the
to me?
headlight look?
I mean,
so good.
There's like 56 of them. How do you choose one?
That's just
like
in one
Chun-Li
game.
is probably the only one that I'd be like, yeah, let's be her.
Here, Mel, pick Iceman because he didn't take chip damage when he blocked, so everybody loved Iceman. This was like a really common one.
All right,
perfect. You were so excited about Iceman. Calling back to earlier, as a gigantic Bionic Commando fan, I was really excited when they added Rad Spencer into Marvel vs. Capcom 3, but I was never good with him, so I never really got to play with him. Also, I had I thought I was the shit at Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Like when my friends and I would play, I would win quite a bit. And then I met with a coworker one day. He was like, man, there's an arcade by here that has a Marvel vs. Capcom 2 cabinet. You want to go play with me? I was like, hell yeah, man. But I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to have fun. He goes, oh, we'll see about that. And he like knew all the infinite combos and just like locked me in a corner and I couldn't play. And that's when I realized, man, I'm not good at this game.
Was he one of those Magneto dudes?
I mean, he knew,
like there's always one Magneto guy.
Yep, that was.
Oh,
Yeah, it was like
Yep.
Magneto,
Yeah,
Doom,
I
was
had
and
to
that
do
Cyborg.
at
guy.
my local
Yep.
mall. Yep. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
thanks. I'm
and
good.
then as I was like, oh, there's a whole other world to this game that I don't even know about. So like the Marvel vs. Capcom series kind of fell off for me, but that's still fun to go back and mess around with every once in a while. I would love to see more
Yeah.
Mega Man characters playable. Like so far, we've had Mega Man X, and Zero, but like they could put Proto Man in there. And like I said before, it's one of my favorite game characters of all time. So that's a guaranteed purchase for me, Capcom. I know you're listening. Put Proto Man in more games. And they
Do
did
it.
make a Mega Man fighting game, but you couldn't really play as any of the like robot masters. You just fought them. I would love to see them try to do something like that, where all those robot masters are playable characters.
That would be great.
Yeah. When the late 80s, early 90s, Capcom was the king of license game, in my very humble opinion. As we touched on before with DuckTales and Chip and Dale and stuff like that. They were making games based on existing properties like cartoons and comic books. Do you have a favorite? I mean, Mel, we touched on DuckTales, but were there any others that you really liked?
Honestly, like I don't know if I have any others. I didn't really get to play a lot of Capcom games like when I was younger, and late 80s and early 90s was like a time period where I was just a mere infant or didn't exist. So, yeah, I don't really have anything for that. But I would love to play DuckTales at some point.
Go back and play that.
It's gonna happen.
Mickey Mouse and the Castle of Illusion was great. They had a license with Disney and did a lot of their games for a while, and they were all really good games.
I think I owned the Aladdin game. Well, my dad owned the Aladdin game for the SNES, but like I've never really played because I thought it would be very similar to the Lion King game, and that game sucked. It was so hard.
Notoriously difficult. Yeah.
But they had to sell rental copies back in the day.
True. It's very true.
It's true. I think from my side, so there was an Alien versus Predator like side-scrolling beat 'em up game that I used to play that I really enjoyed. I thought that was a really fun, interesting deployment of the two universes. And then kind of echoing the Disney stuff, the Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers NES game was a lot of fun. And then a game I actually made Dale play on a stream one time during a thing where I made a donation for it, the Magical Quest starring Mickey Mouse, which again, shockingly hard some of those games were, but they're very good. They're very good.
Yeah, Capcom was really good at just making solid platformers and then slapping licensed characters on them. So good.
Yes, they were.
My first thought goes right to the classic comic character from 1905, Little Nemo. You guys know Little Nemo,
about
right?
that. I do. Yeah, I forgot about that one.
It was, of course, adapted as an animated film in the late 80s, which sparked the video game because not a lot of folks are always pining for an 80-year-old comic book character, at least not in the late 80s. But it's a classic must-play platformer for me. It's a short one. It's only like 8 or 9 levels, but it's good. Like it's solid mechanics, fun, imaginative world. The soundtrack is great. I would love to see them remake that one. Speaking of remakes, like give it a graphical overhaul, make it like more cutesy with all the like cell shading animation and stuff that they can do. Again, this is one I anytime I have an emulator, I throw that on, and it's a must play for me.
Hell yeah.
Well, we're not going to talk about Capcom and not talk about the music, man. I can't not bring up the music. Capcom games have absolute bangers in their soundtracks, and an argument could be made that they are responsible, Capcom, for one of the greatest video game songs of all time, "In the Moon" from DuckTales. You guys remember
Hell
the
yeah.
Moon? You want to hear?
So
you want to hear some of the Moon? Let's hear the Moon.
Let's do it.
That's
So
the
good.
Moon from DuckTales, composed by Hiroshige Tonomura.
That freaking
It
slaps.
does. And in fact,
It hits
when
hard.
they rebooted the DuckTales series a few years back, they brought that song into the series. It's like a lullaby that the mom sang to Huey, Dewey, and Louie when they were little. So it's
Oh my
it's so
God.
it's really cool they brought that back. It's so like I said, that one is hailed as one of the greatest video game songs of all time. I'm going to call back to another one that they're responsible for a little bit later, but I want to hear from you guys if you guys have any songs that stick out for you.
Nose goes. I'm gonna jam out to all your guys' answers. Let's hear
Perfect.
them.
All right. Right on. I got a couple. First one's going to be Flashman from Mega Man 2.
And I've got all these queued up because I'm super prepared. So here's Flash
We
Man
love
from
it.
Mega Man 2, and this is composed by Takashi Tateishi.
I
All
love
right, Brody,
it.
what else you
I
got?
love it. I love that you have these
So
queued up.
good.
And most of these I had downloaded already and listened to fairly often.
So good. I will say that one, when I started learning how to play the bass guitar originally, one of the first things I learned was the little like intro to that song because I absolutely loved
Very
it.
nice.
So next one up for me is going to be Sagat's theme from Street Fighter.
And this is composed by Yoko Shimomura. Another short but sweet one.
Yeah, I always thought that was cool because it had like that synth patch that just ran the whole time and gave it kind of a floaty feel, and then it still got cooking. I second to last one here is gonna be, of course, the goofy little Monster Hunter cooking jingle. So tasty.
I love it.
That's Akihiko Narita who composed that one.
I love that they've kept that jingle every game. It just makes me so happy. I had to do the like cooking spit motion the whole time.
Not knowing Monster Hunter, I wasn't sure if that was the right one, and so I like looked through and I was like, "Oh no, this is the same song I never wrote. This is great. Yeah, this is what he's talking about."
Yeah, you got it. Yep, you can't go wrong. And then the last one for me is going to be Guile's theme to round
Which
it out.
goes with everything. So 3 things about that song. First off, Yoko Shimomura, incredible composer. She's responsible for the soundtrack to Super Mario RPG. She worked on Final Fantasy 15, Live Alive, worked on Kingdom Hearts, The Legend of Mana. She's got a very impressive resume. Second, if you aren't already familiar with Guile's theme Goes With Everything, just look it up on the YouTubes. It's a hilarious series of videos where people will just take that song and put it under anything, and it fits extremely well. Like an episode of Maury where the guy finds out he's not the father. That song boots up and he just starts dancing and the song's playing behind. My personal favorite is the scene from Lion King where Mufasa gets killed. It has him like jumping out of the herd of lions only to get like thrown back down by, and it's just it's beautifully done. And
I
the
love
last
that.
thing about that song, another thing, is if you didn't know, there's a animation domination. It was called ADHD. It was on Fox a while back, and they have a series of videos called "Songs You Didn't Know Have Lyrics," and one of them is Guile's theme, and it's all about how Guile doesn't have eyebrows. And so as I hear that
Oh my
song,
God.
that's all I can hear now. Is like, so that very ending part is like, "Go USA, but go away if you've got fucking eyebrows." It's great. I'm sure it's been posted in the Discord before. This can't be the first time I brought it up. I think we even talked about it in the Street Fighter episode. But man, every time I hear that song, that's all I hear anymore. Well, that takes me onto my list. And so I'm going to start off with one of my favorites from one of my favorite fighting games of all time, Capcom vs. SNK2. This is from the London stage. It's called "This Is True Love Making," and this song goes on for about 4 minutes. So I did you guys a disservice by not playing the entire thing. But here's about 40 seconds of it or so. Man, I love that song.
God, they're so good for the fighting games. The MVC2 soundtrack was so good too. God, these are so good.
Someone once pointed out, it sounds like they're saying tuna with bacon, and that's all I can like that.
Oh no,
that's all I hear. So this is tuna with bacon. The next track I have is from Little Nemo. I brought it up before. This is Nightmare Land. This is one of the last levels in the game. It's composed by Junko Tamiya, and the Capcom for SNK2 is Satoshi Ise. Or I did not give credit where credit is due. And being the Mega Man fan that I am, I have to throw these last two on. This is probably one of my favorite openings to a video game. This is from Mega Man 3. This is composed by Yasuaki Fujita and Harumi Fujita, no relation. And as I said before, there's an argument for what could be claimed as the greatest video game song of all time. It's either The Moon or it's this next one. This is Dr. Wily Stage 1 from Mega Man 2. you think about the late 80s when that was made, like, game had no business having music that good. But man, that holds
True.
up. Well, thank you for
Thank
indulging.
you for including those two.
What-
Man, they were so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, all of these are great.
What was your favorite, Mel? Now that you have a history with Capcom music, you need to name your favorite one. Go.
Name my favorite one. So
pressure.
hard.
Right now.
So hard.
It's tuna with bacon, right?
Okay. Out of all of the ones, I think the Sagat's theme was really
Oh,
cool because
nice.
I love it. Kind of like reminded me of like synth horns, like in the background, and I thought that was like very like jazzy in a way. It was
Yeah.
that was kind of
if
my
you dig
favorite.
that, look up the One Ups cover of Sagat's theme. It's really well done. If you like that tune and everything, they do like a jazzy kind of cover of it, and I think you'd really dig that.
Nice.
Well, thank you for indulging me with the music. I've always got to talk about it when I get a chance. So we're going to jump right into today's last question, our sponsored question, which is brought to you by Capcom's Shady Practices Department. Capcom has had many peaks and valleys during its lifetime, from releasing way too many versions of the same game, Street Fighter, to putting DLC on discs and making people pay to unlock it. Apparently that rubs people the wrong way. Who would have thought? However, they always find a way to pull themselves out of these ruts with quality content. Some say that we are currently in a Cap God era as opposed to a Crapcom era. But what new shitty tactic do you think they should suggest to fall out of grace with the fans again?
I'm telling you, they got to get Mega Man on that blockchain, baby. He's got to be fighting with those NFT powers. It's going to be so good. You buy all those images.
It hurts my heart so bad to
and
even
have them
think
do
about
nothing. Me too.
I would love for them to do loot boxes for any of like the fighting games, mostly Street Fighter, like versus was it Street Fighter?
There was Street Fighter
Capcom versus Marvel.
Yeah, there's a ton of them, man. You're not alone there.
Everything versus everything.
Anything versus anything. There's loot boxes where you have to like, unbox your character. Like you only get a set of 4 at the beginning, and then every single time you open a loot box, there's a new character that you can get. And on top of that, wait, there's more. Remember those crazy combos that you could do? Nope, that's all like hidden within a loot box. So you have to open it up and get a combo move.
That feels
bad.
Why
guys pooping on all my favorite things that Capcom does? I think we need to go and do DLC seasons. You want that great new DLC? Great. Pay us every month for access to it. Have you paid for the previous months? That's great. Thank you. But if your payment has lapsed, you no longer have access to that content. Come to think of it, that's actually kind of how Nintendo's doing the higher tier of their online offering. Here's the Mario Kart DLC. You guys totally have it. It's $50 a year. Oh, sorry, you don't get that anymore.
For now.
Right? You make up your Animal Crossing time. Great, you have access to all this deal. Oh, that lapsed. Man, sorry, you can't decorate your house anymore. See ya.
Man, that's a rip.
Big rip.
Any of those things would make me say, fuck you, Capcom. Just like
all of them are
just
terrible.
like any episode of the show makes me say, fuck you, Dan.
Oof.
Ooh.
Oof. We love you though, for real.
The transition into that was great.
I'm new to that part. I gotta work on my my fuck you, Dan.
Transition quality's been outstanding.
I appreciate
it. Great.
Yeah, better than Clay. I've said that once already.
So much Clay shade.
I just want to say that was Mel earlier. I just read what was on the notes. I'm hosting. I'm a slave to what's here. That's a real Ron Burgundy situation here. All right. Well, so tell everybody where they can find you in the Discord or wherever else that may be.
Yeah, you could find me as Arborescence pretty much just in the Discord nowadays.
I'm in the Discord as Mellerfant.
Makes sense.
With an R.
Is that a typo that you're just rolling with now? Or?
No, it was purposeful.
Just claiming it. That's great. I am Xando Calrissian pretty much anywhere. I've tried to hold on to that for as long as I can. So you can find me there, probably streaming Gravity Circuit. Probably as soon as this episode's done. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to jump in and play some more of that. So that just leads us to say, if you're still listening to this, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you all next time. Thank you very much. Everybody say bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you.